Evil has come to small town Texas. Those are the exact words I used not far from this very spot 1 year ago after the shooting at the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs. So 1 year later, you can see the changes and challenges in this community. The walls of the new sanctuary sitting amidst the 26 crosses that mark the people that were lost. So on this year anniversary, I sit down with Pastor Frank Pomeroy and his wife, Sherry. We talk about the challenges facing Sutherland Springs and his church, and even them as a couple, including the fact that there are truthers, so-called truthers out there, who say the shooting at Sutherland Springs never really happened, and their 14-year-old daughter, Annabelle, never really existed. Those topics and more in this edition of Spriester Sessions.
What are your memories of that day when the shooting happened?
Well, the day of, obviously, I was not here. I was getting certified in a class in Oklahoma City, or actually right outside Oklahoma City, and I got a text by my videographer who stated that there was an active shooter in the church. And at the moment, I thought, well, that's odd. Why would he do that? So I texted him back, that's not funny. And he texted back, it's real. And then he never texted again. So I quickly went outside to get better signal and started calling everybody I could. Well, everybody I could think to call was obviously in there for a while till I got a hold of Rod. And I called, when I got a hold of Rod, I told him what had happened and I don't know what's going on. Can you go by the church? Because it was odd for Rod not to be there. And he said, well, I'm running late. I'm headed up there now, as a matter of fact. And it was just a very short time later, he called me back and said, it's bad, Frank, it's really bad. And I asked about Annabelle, and that's when he said she didn't make it. And at that point, I just threw everything in the car and knew I needed to get back here and started driving back here, knowing that Sherry was going to be coming in. I needed to get there to her. And I wasn't even out of Oklahoma City yet when reporters were already calling me. And obviously I didn't know anything, but I was trying not to tell her by herself what was going on, because she wasn't here either, obviously. In the
longest 8 hours of your life?
12. Yeah, it was about 12 hours, but yes. It was, but you know, Steve, I tell people that first 2 to 3 weeks, to be quite honest with you, I don't really remember a whole lot. I know that I functioned. I know that I did what I needed to do, but my focus was on just trying to keep people's head above water and keep them focused on Christ, to look up. And it was like 2 weeks that I'd been walking through the fencing and all the stuff that was here on the property, but it was like 2 weeks where I kind of, where'd all that fencing come from? Where did that come from? And even though I'd been coming in, walking in, talking to these people, I had to sit down with Mark and Kevin and, guys, my mind must be coming back to me analytically. Where did all this come from? What are we doing? And to this day, I still don't have people tell me things I've said, things I did. I just don't recollect them very well, those first few weeks.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, there's some things that stand out, but much that doesn't.
Talk about Annabelle. What kind of girl was she?
She was our... She was our baby girl. We had her and her half sister Marina since 2005. So we got the girls when we were just about ready to be empty nesting. We adopted 2 little girls that were 2 and 7, and the foster family she was with told us that they were told that Annabelle would never walk or talk. She was 18 months old when we met her. And so she had fetal alcohol, and they didn't expect her to walk or talk ever. They thought she might have had some form of autism or something, but After she moved in our house when she was a little over 2, and we had her since then. And she, with her CPS visits in the adoption process, they noticed that she was pretty much on point for her age, just a little bit developmentally delayed. Mm-hmm. And by the time she was in 7th grade, she was on track grade-wise, academically. And that was just with a lot of prayer and a lot of love. So she had just recently turned a corner socially, got out of this awkwardness.
She was blossoming.
Yeah.
She just got a part in the school play.
In Seguin, in the junior high. She was really excited to be in that play, and she was supposed to be in it in December of last year. So they dedicated that first showing of the play to her last year.
When you think of Annabelle, is that what you think of? The girl that was blossoming, the girl that was in a play, the girl that was living life to its fullest? I don't want to put that word in your mouth, the words in your mouth.
She was, and I see her because we're still at the church so much. This is where she grew up. She grew up on these grounds because I went to work, and she stayed with Daddy a lot, and he was up here, so she went on his visits with him. She went to the hospitals with him. Brian would go with him a lot, and he called her Pumpkin one day, and she said, "I'm not a pumpkin, you're a pumpkin." So from the time Annabelle was 3 years old, Brian was Pumpkin to her.
Even all the way up to 14, she still called him Pumpkin.
It was Carla and Pumpkin.
That's good.
Yeah.
However, I would say the first thing I think of when I think of Annabelle, those are all great things that she was blossoming. Anyone you talk to that knew her, she was a hugger. She loved everybody, and the first thing she would do is run to you, and you had to brace your legs because she was going to hug you fiercely.
Yeah.
Her teachers from both Lavernia and Seguin told me that that's the one thing her teachers got to where they expected those hugs in the morning when she came in. She was just loved to hug.
When you talked about this, she was around this church so often. I'm sure it was no surprise to you that she was at church that morning.
Oh yeah, no.
Correct. She was with one of our best friends that was watching her that morning, and she would have preferred that. If we gave her the option of who she wanted to stay with, she wanted to stay with somebody that would take her to church instead of going to San Antonio to one of her brothers or sister's house.
This was her family.
Yeah. This is where she wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
When you look back on that day, we're almost a year later now. How do you think you've changed? How do you think Sutherland Springs has changed?
Well, to be honest, I think we are still seeking that new normal. I'm waiting till this first anniversary gets behind us so that maybe, whether it be media, the truthers, those people who keep inundating us with trying to go back to that place so much, I think then we can really assess a new normal. However, to the question you ask, how have we changed? I tend to, myself, I can only speak for myself per se, the community has come together a lot stronger, and in so doing for myself, I tend to live for the day more than I did before. I've always preached that you can't change tomorrow, and yesterday and tomorrow's not a sure thing, but you can live for the now. But now I truly grasp it, and I live more for the moment with the people of the community, with my family, and just with myself and God. Just if I feel like I need to go get on the bike and ride for a while, I'll go get on the bike and ride for a little while. I tended to be married to the church, and now I realize that wasn't maybe the fully proper relationship I had, and now I am more free to be what God's called me to be, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, perspectives have definitely changed. It's not important to make sure the house is perfectly clean. It's more important to play with the kids. It's more important to look at the artwork they brought home to put on the fridge instead of cooking supper. It's more important to give them the time instead of pouring the time into things that don't matter.
We talked about Annabelle, because I really want what was lost that day to be the focus of this discussion, not who took it. When you talk about Annabelle and you talk about your close friends and parishioners and people that you've known for years and years, what was lost on that day? And I imagine it goes beyond people.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust was lost. Innocence was lost. We had an 18-month-old baby. We had a 72 was the oldest. So we had run the gamut from age. So, of course, all of those things were lost. We lost not just parishioners, we lost our family. All but 2 of the ones lost were members here, and those we have since made a connection with the family and discovered they were our Christian brother and sister too, even though we didn't know them here. We just had a connection with everybody because we were a family. We didn't just come and see each other on Sunday. We were a family. We ate together, we played together, we went to the movies together, we went to the coast together, we went to the missions baseball field as a church. We did all kinds of things together. We weren't just a church that only knew each other on Sunday.
And I would say, along those same lines of innocence lost, I suppose I have had, I don't like it, however, it's truth that I have become a much more cynical individual. Because of the truthers and others, I tend to now, rather than just be foregoing with that handshake and such, I'm looking, what is the angle? What is it that you are looking for? Who are you? And even on Sunday mornings when we have visitors, as much as we love them and welcome them, in the back of your mind, you know, we have a safety response teams now that we just got to make sure that everything is okay, that everybody is in a good place. And that's unfortunate that we have that kind of cynicism in the back of our minds. I try not to, but no matter how hard I try, it's there.
When you talk about the truthers, specifically there were 2 people that were basically questioning whether you'd actually lost your daughter, if she even existed, correct?
Well, brother, there's way more than 2. We're still dealing. Those 2 are gone.
Yeah.
But we, at least once to twice a week, still, almost a year out, as you said, still dealing with these people. They'll post things on our church Facebook page, or the call and make ugly threats over I just had to make another report to the sheriff's department last week because this one sounded credible enough to have to report. And we have the people that go by. Yesterday we were sitting in my office, and somebody drove by, and the way they were driving by and taking a picture out of their window 3 times in a row, I can almost guarantee they were one of those that post those weird things on the internet. And that's what they are. They say that we are a Homeland Security psychological operation.
That it never happened.
That it never happened, that we are being used by the government to take people's guns.
How do you deal with that?
Have a mental breakdown?
No,
Yeah.
I mean that's I can totally see that.
It is difficult. But you deal with it by the grace of God. You know, I just pray up and just be what God's called me to be, and try not to let it integrate itself in a way that it takes over me. He who is of the world's not going to win, in other words. But and I just, Wendy and my secretary and we just try to keep a short hold on that, and try to isolate and protect everybody from those people. So like, if he posts something to the webpage, as soon as we see it, we get it off, you know, things of that nature. So we just deal with it any way we can. And if they seem to sound credible or over the top, then we call the sheriff again or the Texas Rangers.
You've had people come up to you and say your daughter did not exist.
He was screaming, yes, they hollering at me to produce birth certificates and death certificates, and that she never existed, and that he didn't call me a terrorist, he called me a traitor, that I was a traitor to the country, and all kinds of stuff. It is ridiculous. And to be quite honest with you, Steve, I thought they were doing it for prestige or trying to get some kind of financial backing through a YouTube channel or something.
Yeah.
But the one that was really getting physical with me out here, it's even more scary than that, because looking in his eyes, I think he believed what he was saying. Somebody asked me to explain that. Only insanity would explain insanity. But I think he just really believed it somehow, and I just don't know how. Don't have an answer for that.
I don't understand somebody trying to re-victimize somebody that's already been a victim.
Me neither. But he was doing it to everybody out here. He was going to neighbors' houses till everybody around here had a criminal trespass warrant against him. And then he'd bullhorn all around the church and just calling up victims, survivors, and just telling them their loved one never passed away, they didn't exist, and just trying to cause problems.
Talk about what it's done for the church, as far as you're hit with this traumatic event. There's really, probably two ways a church could go. You either separate or you unite. What has it done for First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs?
I think it speaks for itself when you see these other places that have gone through such trials as ours, and how badly it's torn them apart, and it has been politicized if you don't look to Christ. We chose to look to grace, to forgiveness, to mercy, to healing. And in so doing, not only are the survivors bound together tighter and trust one another and uphold one another, because as Sherry just spoke a while ago, there's some days you're down and other days you're up. But when you're linked arms, we can hold each other at a happy, level place, hopefully. And in so doing, the new people that have come and joined and been a part, they walk into that same family. And like David said, we who have been left behind for whatever reason that wasn't there or survived the ordeal, God obviously had intention for that. So you live out that intention now, and that intention's not to be, oh, poor me, and waller in our guilt or waller in our pain. It's to look up and realize and live life to the fullest that we have now.
David Colbath, one of the people that survived the shooting that we've interviewed before, that's who you're referring to.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. David, many people, but David's very, he's very vociferously standing for that, to go out there and live your life to the best of your ability, love your brothers and sisters, love your neighbors, and let's keep looking up and live life. We have this life given to us, and he says go out and be victorious. He's won victory over the world.
Yeah. What do you see your church family like today?
It is growing by leaps and bounds, and I think the tragedy has united us together. The tragedy has brought people in, not united the church, united the community.
Amen.
And we have come together. We have people coming from San Antonio and all around us coming to unite together as Christians, not as First Baptist Church. And I think that says a lot about the neighbors and the place we live in. This is a place we want to come and worship with other Christians, other brothers and sisters. There's a verse in the Bible that I cling to all the time, and it was hard at first, but it was still reverberating in my mind because it was a verse Carla and I shared all the time, and it's in the book of Esther, and it says, maybe you have come to this place for such a time as this. And that's, God's prophecy. We are put here on this earth for a purpose.
What does it mean to you when you see the walls going up right next door?
We were gone on a vacation for about 10 days, and we came back, and it was indescribable to come up the hill and see the towers up. It was the work that had gone in just that one short week that we were gone took my breath away. It was just amazing the transformation that was here. We saw our little church transformed on November 5th. A week before, it was just a little church out in the woods. We came back and saw it as a battlefield, and now we're seeing it come around full circle as a light to the world.
And we have said from the very beginning, evil will not win. We felt as though that if we took any back steps, then we have allowed Satan to take a step. Therefore, we had service that next Sunday. We've had our events as Vacation Bible School. We're going to have our fall festival. So when you look at the building there, to me, is still God's blessing, saying that those 26 that passed away, their blood's not in vain, because there's revival through that blood.
When I talked earlier about the special we did a few months after the shooting, and we played some of your sermons both before and after that day, a lot of the words you said, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for me, were reassuring.
Amen.
I mean, there were things that I wanted to hear, I needed to hear. How do you react when people tell you that?
Well, anyone who knows me knows that I don't go by a textbook to get my sermons. I pray, and whatever the Lord tells me to speak on that week is what I do. Therefore, when you tell me that and that it reassured you, then I would say that's the Lord getting to you exactly what he needed to get to you. And each one of us individually, I feel as though God speaks to us. You know, it says in the Bible that he spoke through a donkey. If he can speak through a donkey, he can speak through me. And that's just what I am sometimes. I'm just a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
So I praise the Lord for that.
What's it going to be like when you take the pulpit on the Sunday after the 1-year anniversary?
You know, I am not one to get into the what ifs. You know, I can't tell you exactly what's going to be. You know, I just don't know. I don't know how that weekend's going to go. I'm not sure exactly where we're going to go, but I think that it'll be a sense of a victory for the Lord, that we are still standing, we are still here, and we are here by God's grace. He'll never leave us nor forsake us, as the scripture says.
It will be bittersweet.
We tend to look at things differently anyway. You know, the one thing we've learned, I think you asked this a while ago, one of the things I did learn in this, even though I counseled with people prior to the event, I have learned in an infinitesimal way that people grieve at different speeds and in different ways. And two different people can look at the same situation, such as Sherry tends to grab on to the emotions more than I do, where I'll grab a hold of the victory, you know, gosh, this sounds like some kind of machismo here, but the conquest, you know, we are winning this battle for Christ.
That's why we work.
Yeah, that's why we work.
What will you be thinking on that Sunday, you think?
Probably the same thing, I think, every Sunday. Conflicting emotions. I try to hang on to the good instead of focusing on the bad. We've had a rough couple of weeks because all of the survivors have a lot of intense emotions right now. Even people that say they weren't that close to it, people that don't live here, that just had a tie here, are even going through a lot of emotions and they don't know why. It's the coming of the anniversary. It just boils up a lot of feelings inside of us, and we've had a rough couple of weeks, but we're trying to focus on the positive. We're going to be very busy that weekend, so hopefully we won't have a lot of time for tears. We're going to have to focus on the good.
Last question. Oh, go ahead.
And I guess a better answer to what I was trying to say is I look through the 4th. I'm looking for the new sanctuary. I'm looking for growth. I'm looking, you know, I'm just looking through that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Last question for both of you. What do you want people to know about First Baptist Church, about Sutherland Springs, about the 25 lives that were lost, about Annabelle?
We've said it many times that this ordeal does not define us. We were a community prior to. The church was the center of this community. We used to have the primaries here in our fellowship hall. When there's the floods like the flood of '98 or the hurricanes, this is a Red Cross staging area. The church always has been the center of our little community here. And I believe that we still are. This is another aspect of what defines us. Just as we as single human beings, as we grow in life, we have that learning to walk, we have that first love, we have our jobs, we have those goals that we attain, and it makes us who we are. This was another, it was a big thing, but it's still just another step in the learning process and the growth of this community. And I would submit to you that even those who don't come to the church for services, because there's many here in this little community, it's a very close community, and many are Catholics and other denominations, but they still come to the gatherings, will come to eat, and they'll come to fellowship as a community. So when you ask what I would want the church to be known is, again, as Sherry said, it's not about First Baptist Church. It's about Jesus Christ. And because it's about God first, everybody else can come in behind that. And we'll welcome you with open arms and love on you. Yes, that day happened. I'm not pretending it didn't happen. But God is going to bless tenfold from that day, in my opinion.
My battle cry would be, evil did not win. Because if we let evil win, if we let fear take over, if we let sadness take over, then all of the lives, the 26 that we lost, are in vain.
Amen.
If we let love win instead of evil, then their lives had a purpose.
Absolutely.